Thank You White Nights is supported by ExclusiveWellnessClub.com, home of wellness products for the health conscious such as MMS1 and 2, Lugol's iodine, DMSO, colloidal silver and MSM at ExclusiveWellnessClub.com. Shipping outside the United States available. Link below.
Hello and welcome to the very first episode of The Light Agenda. My name is Stephen Cook and thank you for taking time out to join me and my special guest today. First, let me tell you a little bit about this show that I've called The Light Agenda. I'm sure we each have some concept, and possibly each our own individual concepts, of the general gist of the bigger, broader light agenda that we are currently living through. As we all know, light is knowledge, and my own light agenda is to gather as much information that rings true to me, and then to work as faithfully as I possibly can to increase my, and wherever possible, communicate to and assist others in increasing their light quotient. So my light agenda is to see that we can each be informed and ready, physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally and consciously, as best we can to prepare for whatever awaits each of us as this incredible year of 2012 progresses. As this program and we evolve together, my hope is that the Light Agenda will be a place you can head to find out that little bit more about those among us who are setting the Light Agenda in their own various ways. In fact, I'm hoping the Light Agenda will become a place where light minds come to think alight, and hopefully that will also inspire you to come alight. Some weeks we may be very current and newsy, others may simply be conversational and chatty. The show may run over several weeks as a first series, then take its short break, or events way bigger than any of us expect may result in it being a weekly ongoing fixture. I don't know right now, but for the moment I'm happy to go with the flow and leave the Light Agenda's life cycle to the universe to decide. Either way though, my aim is to feature those who you may wish to know a little bit more about. Men and women of all ages from around the world who are setting the Light Agenda via their channel messages, their blogs, their writings, their broadcasts, or with their opinions, their life experiences and behind-the-scenes intel on what is going on within the Light Agenda. What they do, their stories, their lives, what motivates them and what their life-changing moments were or have been. We'll find out what they think, how they see things panning out, and what's been happening lately. It'll be their opinions, their views, their stories, their issues. As a way of gathering a slightly different perspective, I'm also going to be asking each guest to suggest a music track of their choosing to end their particular interview. It'll be a track or a song that encapsulates their lives, their thinking, or is significant to them and indirectly, hopefully you and me, at this moment in time. So I hope you join me together and we will seek our own light agenda as my guests reveal theirs. And so, without any further ado, let's get the Light Agenda underway. As recently as the 31st of March this year, my first guest was completely unknown. But a blog titled The Portal 2012 and the messages posted there have soon changed that. In the short space of just 2.5 months, Cobra has become a strong and sometimes controversial voice within the Lightworker community, organising mass meditations and visualizations, being a messenger for the underground resistance movement, and imparting knowledge on various universal concepts and incidents behind the scenes. A few weeks ago I did a 2-part email-only interview with Cobra for the 2012 Scenario website, and as those who regularly enjoy the site know, Cobra did not wish to reveal his or her identity at that time, and I respect that. Nevertheless, during that interview, we all learned a few things about Cobra, including the fact that Cobra needs to protect his or her identity because people close to Cobra have been attacked by the Cabal, that Cobra is a Pleiadian incarnate in a human body, that he or she has had a long association with a man named Michael, who started the resistance movement some 35 years ago, and that Cobra posts encoded messages which assists the resistance movement in their quest to remove the dark. Now, we agreed after that interview that when the time came, Cobra would be my first guest here on the Light Agenda, as long as I disguised his or her voice. And so, true to the given word, Cobra joins us now, vocal enhancements and all. Cobra, welcome to the very first episode of the Light Agenda.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this interview.
My pleasure. Now, it's been a fairly big few days over the last few days, and it's probably also been a little bit confusing for some of us. Now, we're hearing from you and others that the cabal has stepped forward to seek negotiations for their surrender, and yet at the same time we've had all sorts of polls on various websites asking us what we, as the citizens of Earth, would like the Earth allies, the resistant movements and others, including Drake, to do with the cabal. Now, for me and possibly some other listeners now, it's been a bit confusing. Could you bring us up to speed with where things are at as we stand today?
Actually, things are not confusing at all. It is very simply a big step forward in this planetary liberation process, because this is the first time in human history when the cabal actually considers surrendering. So this is a very big step. It is the first real option for peace on this planet. So what is actually happening is that some segments of the cabal are actually considering surrendering, and they would like to know the terms of that surrender. And the purpose of all those polls on various websites is just to have a general idea what the awakened part of the population would like. So it's actually very simple and very clear.
Okay, but I'm still a little bit confused because following the June 6th Venus transit, I think you and possibly a couple of other people said that at that moment the cabal then made an offer to surrender. So what was that offer at that time, and how is it either the same or different from what's just happened the past few days?
Actually, the Venus transit is one very powerful moment, and it is the moment when after more than 5,000 years, the goddess energy came back to this planet. And if you really know human history, you'll know that before that time, there was a long period of peace upon this planet. In the Neolithic times, there was no wars. And now, finally, when this energy is coming back, this energy influences everybody, not just the light workers, but also the average human population and the cabal. So
people like you and me as well.
Everybody. So what happened is that the first time the cabal began to realize that they're losing their power for sure, and they better negotiate. It is similar to the criminals when they realize they're going to get caught. They begin to think about surrendering because they might get a larger sentence. So this is exactly what happened immediately the Venus transit. And what's happening in the last few days is just the process of negotiation, the process of finding out what do we really want and how the cabal will respond to this. I can give no guarantee they will accept the surrender, but it would be a very good thing they will.
Okay, so how did you first learn, or how did you learn that the cabal was thinking of surrendering after the Venus transit, and then what action was taken, or who of the cabal came forward and to whom at that time?
Okay, so I heard about those negotiations for a few months. I didn't take them seriously. I was not working with that particular group, and I actually heard about this from the Drake's interview, and I was very skeptical first, so I decided to check my contacts. And they said, yes, this is really happening. I didn't believe it at first, and I said again, is it really happening? They said yes. I was not happy about the idea that the mass arrest will not happen in the same way as it was planned, but then they explained me that actually what's happening is better. They gave me intel and some background about this, and then I said, okay, and then I posted it on my website. So what's happening now is actually there is a certain group within the Rothschild and Rockefeller faction that would like to surrender, most likely the central bankers. This is not the whole of the cabal. This is just one faction that is negotiating, especially with Keenan. And Drake is in contact with Keenan, and they are negotiating this. There are other factions.
So when you say Keenan, that's Neil Keenan, who I think David Wilcock first said that had served the liens on not only the Federal Reserve, but then the 12 Federal Reserve banks in America, and also some of the central banks within Europe. So have you been in contact with Drake to find this out, or have you got your own intel sources that give you that information?
I have no contact with Drake. I work independently, but I have my own sources, and they said that, yes, this is happening. This is true.
Okay. So do you know how the cabal has stepped forward? Like, what did they say? Who did they just contact Neil Keenan direct and say we're interested in making some sort of deal here?
They contacted Neil Keenan, and I think also Drake received a phone call from them, and they just they are scared. They would like to surrender. There is no news yet how this all turned out, because they still need to think about it, a few days maybe. And when I contacted my sources in the resistance, they said there is a certain deadline that needs to be put, and they need to surrender by that day. This was the suggested day was the 21st of June, the solar solstice.
Yeah, so the summer or winter solstice, depending on where we live. So do you know at this point, though, what that surrender might entail, how that would actually happen?
There are various conditions put forth, and this is not yet finalized, but from the perspective of the resistance movement, one of the main conditions would be that they would need to go on the mass media and publicly announce their surrender and explain in brief who they are and what they did. This is the first condition.
Okay.
And the second condition is for them to completely and absolutely and forever step down from their power. So this gives us freedom to finally begin shaping our destiny on this planet.
And are they the only two conditions at this time?
These are the two main conditions given forward by the resistance movement. There are many more that are given forward by the negotiation group. So
right.
This is part of
and do you know who that is?
At this point, I don't have all the details, but it's not just the two main conditions. There will be many, many more.
Right. Do you know who the negotiation group may be? Because one of the things that you did say to me when we did our email interview on the 2012 scenario was that in the past, you had been involved in negotiations of handover of certain members of the cabal?
Yes, but that was a different faction. I was more involved with negotiation of the surrender of the Jesuit faction and some other Archon-type entities. So I'm not in contact with this group, not directly.
Right. But those members of the cabal who you assisted with their negotiation process, are you able to say would any of us know who they are?
I'm not allowed to give any names. For some of them, I didn't know the names, and for some of them, I know the names, but I'm not allowed to speak about that.
Okay, but so if, for example, though, you're doing a negotiation, are you literally the person in the middle saying, they're offering this, do you accept this? They say no, and you move forward like that? Is that how it actually happens?
It's actually a negotiation with somebody who is opposing you, and you need to know, you need to have tactics how to deal with them. You need to understand their psychology, their way of thinking, how they will react, where to push, where to step forward, where to go back, how to do it. You know, they are crazy people. They don't think like usual human beings, so you need to understand how they react and what are their weak spots. One of the main factors here is just gathering intel on what their weak spots are. This is one of the main things here.
Right. But when you're actually doing that negotiation, obviously it's a game of psychological warfare to some degree.
Yes.
Yes. So is that something that you as Cobra have trained in the past, or that you have taught yourself, or does that something that just comes naturally to Cobra?
Actually, my contact with the resistance many years ago taught me about this. And I went to some, I would say, there was not a formal training, but some kind of training, yes.
Yes, okay. So in terms of the cabal surrendering or not surrendering, though, if they don't surrender, there was a period where we were all expecting all the mass arrests to happen, and we were all waiting and waiting. April came and went. People thought, oh, maybe it's May. May came and went. Then we were hoping it would happen around the time of the eclipse. Then people were hoping it would happen around the time of the June 6th Venus transit. Why does it keep on being delayed?
It is because nobody knows everything, and this is like in every war. Nothing goes as planned. Actually, the date of April 2012 was given to me 10 years ago. And I was expecting this to happen in April. And when the April came and went, I was given explanations. Why doesn't happen now? Why doesn't happen now? And more factors that are involved were being revealed. So actually nobody knows when and how this is going to happen. The only thing I was given assurance of is that this will happen, one way or the other. This planet will be liberated. So, actually, when the resistance asked me to put up the Cobra blog site, they said the purpose of this is to inform the general population because now is the time when the planet is going to liberate it. And I wouldn't put up the website if this was not guaranteed.
Okay, but in terms of the mass arrests themselves, like you just said that the time frame has changed. What is actually impacting on that time frame? What is slowing it down, or what can you tell us about what may be happening behind the scenes that keeps making it shift?
The first factor here is concerned by the positive light forces of the reaction of the general population upon this. Nobody actually knows how the general population will react when something like this happens. There are some projections, there are models being made, computer simulations, but nobody really knows because nothing like this has ever happened on this planet. And this planet is so difficult to liberate just because the general population has been brainwashed so deeply. This is the main factor here. And a large part of the general population might not cooperate with the plan. So this is one of the main factors here.
Do you think that's the case, though? Because, say, for example, I mean, I know it usually blows people away. I mean, I talk to people quite regularly, friends and even family, and say, look, you know, these are some of the things that have happened. These are the things that could be possible. Most people go, oh, I'd love my life to be different. I would love that I'm not constrained. I would love that there was no war. I'd love to know I had have no money worries and I didn't have to work and leave my children. So do you not think that the general population itself would really appreciate being liberated at last?
They will appreciate it after this is over, but not during the process, because the process itself might not be completely peaceful or smooth. And they will not appreciate actively cooperating in this. They would just like to make it happen, but somebody has to do it. And if there is a small yet powerful group doing this, we have to do it very carefully.
Now, when you say small yet powerful, you've told me in the past that there's around about 300 resistant movement members on the surface. Does that mean there are thousands of other resistant movement members underground?
There
and then
20 million at this moment underground.
Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't know that. And are they human beings, or are they Pleiadian beings?
They are beings in physical bodies. They look like humans, but their origin is coming from other star systems. And basically, they lived on planet X for the last few incarnations at least. Some of them have already been incarnated on this planet in the past, some of them not, but they understand quite well the situation here. And they look like very much...
Planet X, I'm not quite sure of Planet X. Can you tell me a little bit about what that is?
Planet X is the planet on the it's in the outer range of the solar system beyond Pluto. It's a planet a little bit bigger than this planet, and there is a certain civilization living under the surface of that planet. And they are actually the ones who created the resistance movement, or actually they renewed the resistance movement because it was almost destroyed in about 12, 13 years ago.
Okay. So they are the people that will actually assist in, I suppose, bringing in the cabal?
They will assist, but actually it is the job of the positive military group to do that. The resistance movement will help behind the scenes, and they will become active on the surface only if there is need for that. Okay.
So are you foreseeing that there will be need for that based on the fact that we're still dragging out month after month with no surrender or capitulation on behalf of the cabal?
They might be needed. It's not known yet. So I would give 50% chance that the cabal surrenders, another 50% they will not. So we'll see what happens.
Now, listening to you now, do you foresee that this is going to be a horrific battle, or are we seriously hoping that this will be a peaceful and quiet and basically generally calm solution?
I don't know. At this moment, everything is put on the table, things are not yet decided. There are many possible futures at this moment. We are doing everything we can for a peaceful transition, but it cannot be guaranteed. There are actually some plans from the Pleiadians that came in just like 1 or 2 days ago. They are not yet finalized. They will be finalized in a few days, and when they are finalized, I will be allowed to speak about it, and those plans might improve the situation quite much.
Okay. Now, when we talk about the cabal and, I suppose, the fear and the dangerous things and the horrific things they've done, you yourself, though, the reason you need to protect your identity at the moment is because you've actually been physically attacked in the past. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And also people that are very close to me have been attacked even much, 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 much more drastically. And I will never want to happen this again.
So does that mean that you've lived a life somewhat of fear?
There was a certain period of time I was very afraid of, but then I realized that I have to fight, and I gathered contacts, and so I am here right now.
Okay. So in being able to do that, though, I mean, does that mean you're constantly looking over your shoulder to think that someone may still be after you, or a member of... No?
I have created mechanisms of protection that are very strong, and actually I feel quite safe and quite secure right now. I just know that I need to be careful doing certain things. I know how they work, and that's all.
Okay, so in terms of your day-to-day existence, you're not necessarily restrained or, I suppose, you're not like held captive yourself, hiding out so that no one can come and get you again.
No, not at all. I live a normal human life, normal existence. The only difference is that I know certain things that most people don't, and this puts me in a little bit different position. It can be difficult sometimes not to speak about something, but otherwise it's just a regular human life.
Okay, now in light of that, though, some of the things you've posted in the last few days, and this is nothing to do with the cabal, this is actually readers of your actual blog post, Portal 2012. You've actually come under a bit of attack yourself from readers who've suggested that you've been cloned. Like, is that true?
Yes, some people have reactions, and I'm quite used to that because whenever you put sensitive intel to the public, some people are going to like it, some people are going to hate it, and it's just the way it is.
So do you
this
just
is
think
nothing compared to what Cabal can do, so I have no problem with that.
All right, so in answer to those people who've in the last few days posted some odd things, you're not full of disinformation, and you're not actually, I suppose, an agent for the Rockefellers or the Rothschilds.
No, I'm not. Of course I'm not. Actually, there was cloning happening place on this planet, but this was being cleared by the resistance, I think, about 10 years ago. So there are no clones walking around right now.
But no clones of Cobra, definitely not.
No.
So, but when you read that, I say, okay, and look, in talking to you before via email and talking to you now, I know that you're working very hard to try to achieve what you're hoping to do. But when you get comments like that, does that make you think, oh, why am I doing all this? Or does it make you feel as though you should actually be doing it even more and get more involved and more committed?
It doesn't influence my decision. I have made my mind a long time ago. I'm here. Based on my life experience, I made a vow a long time ago to insist on liberating the plan no matter what until it's done. So this is what I'm going to do, and a little bit comments on my website doesn't change anything. It's not an issue anymore. Okay.
So can we talk a little bit about nuclear weapons? Because some of our galactic sources, I mean, you've obviously heard of Salusa, Matthew Ward, channeled by both Mike Quincy and Susie Ward respectively. They have said that the galactics would never allow another nuclear warhead to be used. But in reading one of your recent posts, you actually said that the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds had access to nuclear weapons as recently as December 2011.
Actually, they had access to nuclear weapons since the time of the first atomic bomb explosion in Hiroshima. And what the channelers are saying, I cannot comment because most of those sources are not completely reliable. You see, the channeled information goes to the filter of the human mind. And although some channels can be quite clear on certain things, most information that comes through the channeling process is being distorted. So the Pleiadians never said they can completely guarantee to prevent a nuclear war. Actually, when I met Pleiadians a long time ago, they were quite scared of the nuclear war here, but they said they will do everything to prevent it. And they have much power to prevent it, but again, they need to follow certain protocols. For example, if there will be mass landings taking place right now, that would for sure trigger all the weapon arsenal that the Cabal has. So they have to be careful how to do this. And yes, they have technology to block most of this, but not all of this yet.
Okay, now you just mentioned then that you'd met with the Pleiadians. I'm going to come back to that in a little while. But in saying that that the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds had nuclear weapons as late as December last year, you also said that by January that had changed. So what actually changed to stop or to take those nuclear weapons away from them?
Okay, there was a certain project. There was a combination of actions from the Pleiadians and other positive races and the resistance movements to remove the access of the nuclear weapons from especially the Rothschild faction. And this was very successful, was going on between, I would say, late November last year and middle of January this year. And as a result of this, all this information about the mass arrest and everything else could come to the surface. Without that, that would not be possible. It was simply too dangerous. Now, certain things have been released after that time, and it is much easier now to carry on the plan.
Okay. So in terms of nuclear weapons now, though, you're pretty sure from your intel that they don't have access to nuclear weapons now?
I'm 99% sure that this has been cleared. Not all of it has been cleared, but it has been limited to the sufficient extent that I am 99% sure that something like this will never happen.
Okay, because I remember...
I cannot give you one guarantee. I did not receive confirmation for that 100%.
Right. But I remember last year reading actually not last year, a few weeks ago, reading the most bizarre story that Kodak, that used to be a photo and film company, had a nuclear reactor in their building. So maybe that's how the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers have actually had these nuclear facilities. Maybe they've been part and parcel of some secret part in some of the biggest corporations.
Well, it's much easier than that. The Rothschild faction has people very deep in the military, and they have access to nuclear codes. So there was a certain project to change this somehow so that their codes don't work any longer.
Okay, now you this weekend just past mentioned that the physical archons within the Jesuits also had access to nuclear weapons. Does that mean that they no longer have access as far as you know?
There are a little bit problems there. They might have some, but very little. It is far less danger than it was even a week ago. So this is being cleared right now.
All right. So despite the fact that our galactic sources are saying there will be no nuclear action, there will be no, nuclear war, nothing will outbreak, there may well be some still in possession of people, but they could well be nullified at some point.
Exactly. So there was many instances in the past 10 or 20 years. We were very close to nuclear war, and because of the intervention of the Pleiadians and other races, this has been prevented many, many times.
Okay.
The situation now is so much better than it was ever in the last 50 years. This is the reason why the channel sources are saying there is no danger. I would say there is maybe 1% danger, but it's almost completely erased.
Okay, now one of the other critical factors you said was very important in the surrendering of the Cabal is the handing over of control of the mainstream media. So how do you envisage that would happen? I mean, it's not just English-speaking media, it's Spanish-speaking media, Portuguese media. Obviously, the Cabal has its hands in every single media right around the world. So how would that actually happen, and who would they hand over control to?
The best way for this to happen is the actual surrender of the Cabal according to the conditions they were put forward by the resistance movement.
Mm-hmm.
And if this happens peacefully, it's very easy. Simply the control is lifted, the censorship is lifted, and people are allowed to investigate on their own. And also, people who are in the position inside the light forces can come to the TV stations and start telling the truth. There is documentation, there is evidence, and if the Cabal steps forward and announces their surrender, this will be the critical breakthrough. If this doesn't happen, things will take much longer and it will not be so easy.
Okay, so in saying all of that, though, do you then see, though, that the cabal itself would literally, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, if they have control, they're not just likely to just walk away, are they?
It's not about walking away. They have two options. The first option they have is peaceful surrender, and they have there's a certain deadline in the next, I would say, 10 days. If they don't accept this option, their future is going to be much, much, much harder. So it's in their self-interest to accept this option, because otherwise plans are being put into place that will erase them one way or the other. So they have no option. They need to surrender.
Okay, so the other critical factor you've also said is the resetting of the financial system. So what does that actually involve?
Okay, we have now, again, two options. The first option is, if the cabal surrenders, this transition can be very smooth. It can be without stress. The banks may remain open. It will be simply the same thing that's happening with internet, with the expansion in the new protocol. The same can happen with the financial system because it's all electronic. You just switch over to the new program. If the cabal will not surrender, there will need to be a reboot. That means an actual reset when the banks are closed. And by doing that, you cut off the cabal from all the money. And when you cut them off from all the money, they're basically paralyzed. And this is the way how the mass arrest scenario would happen. So we have two options here, and we don't know yet which one will manifest.
So you don't have any intel on what's happening behind the scenes with the European financial situation at the moment?
I have, but it's not yet decided. You see, there are two possible futures, and it's not about intel, it's about the free will of the cabal.
Okay.
Nobody knows what's going to happen. There will be much more known in a few days or 1 week.
Well,
but now it's the decision point. It's right now, so nobody knows.
Okay, but in the last couple of days, and I don't know whether you've heard this, but there's been a couple of stories in definitely non-mainstream media, so they haven't been in any of the mainstream media, but there's a couple of stories that certainly started moving on some alternative media websites and within emails, that the Italian bank, and I think it's BNI, has sent letters to its customers saying that they won't have access to their accounts or their monies for some period of time. So have you heard about that, or do you know anything about that?
Yes. This is actually part of the disintegration of the financial system, and the disintegration is happening the last 4 years, the so-called financial crisis. That was artificially triggered, but there is a higher purpose to this. It is to soften the rigidity of the system to the point where we can crash it at will if we want. So the light forces have tools to crash the system if that is necessary. But the closing down of that bank is not part of this crash. It is simply an organic process of disintegration of the Rothschild banking casino.
Okay, so it is a true story.
Yes.
And then speaking of Europe, though, we had a Greek election that basically went nowhere, and in fact they're going to the polls this weekend. How do you see that unfolding? Do you believe that the Greek election, how will that unfold? Who do you think may win that?
Most likely Greek population will say no, and most likely Greece will have to exit the European Union. And if this happens, this triggers a chain reaction. So actually, there are many things happening at once. It's not just the surrender of the cabal itself. The planetary situation is such. The financial situation, the energies that are coming, everything is coming to a certain tipping point.
Yes.
And this is happening right now. So if this chain reaction happens, the humanity and the cabal and the light forces all together will be forced to make a decision. So there will be no more waiting, most likely.
Okay, you don't know when that might happen?
It might happen any day. You see, we are now at the point, after the Venus transit, things are happening every day, and everything is possible from now on.
Okay, so those planetary things, such as the eclipse, the Venus transit, they really have had a big impact on things.
Oh, yes. They have the basic impact on things. The cabal would not give an offer to surrender without the Venus transit, without all the meditations with it, without all the information that people have, without the awareness people have. It would not be possible.
So can I ask you a bit about the Archons? Because, again, here and it's an area where somewhat I'm a little bit confused, but I know a lot of people, not me in this case, but a lot of people have been confusing the Archons with the Anunnaki. So could you just explain the difference about who or what are the Archons, and a little bit about what role they're currently playing in the dark?
Okay. Archons, this is a Greek word for rulers, and they are actually the ones who are ruling the Terrentine Earth. And there is a physical aspect, there is very few of them left, and there is the non-physical aspect. And actually the whole show is being run from the etheric and astral planes. This is where most of them are. And what they do is they influence the thinking process and the emotional process of humanity. So they actually have technology available on the etheric and astral planes to influence the way how people think, the way how people feel, and this actually greatly influences the behavior of the masses and also influences the behavior of the cabal and unluckily also the behavior of the light workers. So they are the ones who we need to be really aware of. And the purpose of those mass meditations was, one of the primary purposes was to get a victory over those people.
In terms of what, though? You mean because of our group conscious thought becoming, entering the atmosphere and changing people's intentions, or?
No, actually it's a kind of magical words, similar that happened in Atlantis. Light forces are bringing in light, and if there is enough light on the planet, on the etheric and astral planes, this creates a network of light, a planetary grid, which in turn gives the light forces of the higher dimensions opportunity to remove those archons from the etheric and astral planes. And we have had quite a great success in the last few weeks with this. The dark grid has not been completely removed, but it's in the process of being removed. And this is exactly the reason why it is possible now to proceed with the plan. Okay, now you just said something that I'm still a bit confused about. After we all did the reboot of the grid meditation, you had said it was successful. So how did you know that at the time? I received reports, I received intel about it. There are certain things I'm not allowed to speak about yet, but there was certain events taking place that were that was for me an indication of a great success. And actually there was a crack in the negative, in the dark grid on the etheric and astral planes. And through that crack, this crack will widen and will expand and will actually dissolve the grid at a certain point.
So in the same way as an ozone layer kind of grows? In the same way as an ozone hole grows in the atmosphere with pollution?
Yes, similar.
Okay.
Yes.
And at that time, when you said that the reboot of the grid had been successful, you also said that the archons had been removed from the astral planes. But this week, and the way I...
Not all of them.
Okay. That's what I was confused about, because this week you said that there was still some present here on the ground as physical archons.
Yes, there are very few also present inside the Jesuits faction. Not many of them, but those who are very powerful because they were at the top of the pyramid all the time.
So when you say the Jesuit faction, though, is that the same as the Zionist faction we read about?
Not exactly the same, but we would say the Zionist faction is subordinate to the top people in the Jesuit faction.
Okay, so can you give us a bit of more description of the Jesuits? Because some people may not understand what you mean by that.
Actually, that's a religious military group that has influenced most of the events in human history the last, let's say, 400 years or so. And actually, the Rothschilds are just their bankers, their slaves. They obey the Jesuits' commands. And those people they are very, very well versed in occult technologies. They know exactly how the human mind works. They know about the mass programming. They have experience. They gathered intel about that through Inquisition techniques in the last few hundred years. And they were actually designing the human history. And it's time now for them to be removed.
So in terms of when you say they're in military, though, so when we hear...
They are not military. It's a militant group that is actually infiltrated inside the top people in the Catholic Church. Most of them are now in Italy. Not everybody of them is in Italy, but the core group, great part of the core group is in Italy right now.
So well, I was going to ask you about this anyway, so now you've gone there. The Vatican, the things that are happening in the Vatican right now, are they linked to this undermining of the Jesuits themselves?
This is the top layer of this. What's actually happening is being reported nowhere. You need to understand that most things that are happening in the background never get it to the Internet authority websites. They get reported nowhere.
So will you be telling us more about that if you can find out information on that?
You see, when I receive intel, I'm allowed to speak about certain things, and I'm not allowed to speak about other things.
Okay, so if an operation is still underway, it's obviously still secret at that point.
Yeah, so when I receive clearance to put something, I put it on my website.
Yeah. So who gives you that clearance, though?
The resistance
Okay,
movement.
via possibly Michael, who you have known for some time.
Not exactly through him, but through other sources.
Okay.
He is the leader of the operation. I have some other contacts.
Okay. Now, when we did our email interview, you told me that you were Pleiadian incarnate in a human body, and a little while earlier in this interview, you just told me that you'd met with them. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Like, were you born a starseed, or are you a walk-in, or are you Pleiadian birth and you were then put here on Earth?
Actually, I went through usual incarnation process to human parents, the usual way.
Yes. Okay.
But I never lost awareness of who I am.
Even as a child?
Yes, I had this unbroken connection. It was never broken.
Okay. So what do you remember about your Pleiadian history then?
Actually, they contacted me at a certain point in my life, physically. It was during the nighttime. I was teleported to the ship, and they showed me certain things in the solar system. They explained me certain things, and there was a big discussion that we had about the nuclear war. They were very concerned about that. And actually, I didn't want to come back, but they said you have to come back because this nuclear war has to be stopped. And I was given certain instructions at that point about this that I'm not allowed to speak about yet, but I'm cooperating with them since then.
Okay, so does that mean that when you said you're born to human parents, do they have any knowledge of your Pleiadian ancestry, or is this something that you have actually been able to talk about within your family, and are they involved in what you do now in any way?
No, they are not. You see, they are usual human parents, like usual human population. They don't understand this yet. They will believe when they see it happen, so I don't talk to them about it.
Okay, so you went up on a ship. What was that like?
Oh, it was the energy was really extremely loving. It was very comfortable. It felt like home. It was for me like coming home. So it's not possible to describe this in human words. The ships are actually very small. The one I was in, it was like the diameter was about 30 feet, or maybe a little bit more. There were about 7 Pleiadians in there, and it was a very family type of experience, a real family, a real soul connection with those beings.
Wow.
And although I was speaking to them with my voice, they could also speak to me telepathically at that point. And they also opened up certain abilities to me. And then they showed me around the solar system. I was able to be near the moon and all the planets. They explained to me what's happening there, and they explained to me something about the future of human race.
Wow, I'm envious. I would have loved to have done that.
Oh yes, because it's a beautiful experience, but when you come back, it's hard to adjust because there is such a big difference in vibration. It's unbelievable.
And do you remember how old you were when this happened?
Yes, but I'm not allowed to speak about it.
Oh, okay. So in terms of when that happened, though, you were fully conscious. It wasn't like you were. When you say it happened in the nighttime, were you fully conscious that you were being taken, or was it almost just like a vivid dream?
I was fully conscious because I was taken with the physical body. It was not a dreamtime experience. It was a physical experience. And yes, I was completely and fully conscious about it.
Okay. And how do you remember, or are you allowed to talk about how you went from your point or your place that you were on Earth at the time to the ship?
I was teleported.
Right.
I was simply taken away from where I was, teleported to the ship, and then together with the ship went to the atmosphere and then to open space.
So did you know that was going to happen beforehand, or were you frightened at any moment whilst it was happening?
I wished it to happen, but when it happened, it was a nice surprise, like a birthday present.
Lucky you. Now, you have also said that the Pleiadians have told you that they will appear en masse immediately following the surrender of the Cabal, but not before. And
they did not say immediately. They said the condition for them to appear en masse is that the Cabal is being removed. And when after the Cabal is removed, they will initialize the process of the first contact. And I have received instructions for them what to do when that happens.
Okay.
So I will be able to post details on the website after the Cabal is removed about the first contact.
So
I have the great parts of the plan already, but I'm not allowed to speak about it before the Cabal is removed.
Are you allowed to tell us anything? Because, I mean, we're hearing, and look, I have seen several spaceships, and I've had two quite close encounters myself with two completely different ships, but I've never had, as far as I know, a wonderful face-to-face connection with any star beings, unless I have and I don't remember. But are you able to give us any idea of, are we talking about mass flyovers? Are we talking about mass landings, or how it may evolve?
Okay. I can give you a few details. The first one is that after the Cabal is removed, the Pleiadians will contact few selected individuals and will give them display of their presence. And after some time, after this display of their presence, there will be a first physical meeting that will be private among those individuals. And this will expand through a certain process that will involve the mass media. The Pleiadians will provide evidence, physical evidence of their presence through the mass media, which will be liberated by them. And when the human population is ready, which will be quite soon after the Cabal is surrendered or defeated, that they will be able to appear through mass flyovers.
Okay.
And soon after that, the humanity will have a choice to decide if they wish to accept the mass landings or not. And most likely, the first contact, the first official contact will happen through the representatives of the new government of this planet, whatever that will be, and the Pleiadians. And they said to me that most likely this will happen through the United Nations. I know some people have reservations that they say that the United Nations is corrupt.
Yes, I was going to say that.
But at that point, the United Nations will be simply an organization that will represent humanity. It will not be under Cabal's control any longer. The official building will stay there in New York, and it will not be demolished. And this place can be used, and most likely will be used for the first contact, the first official contact.
Okay, now I'm told that I'm originally Arcturian by ancestry or descent. You keep talking about the Pleiadians. Will other races and other Galactic Federation members be involved in that same system, and not the same system, but the same flyovers, the same disclosure process?
Yes, to a certain extent. The Syrians also will be involved, I know for sure, but mostly the Pleiadians will be the first to appear simply because the Pleiadian race is closest in psychology and outer look and everything to human race. So they are very similar to the human race, and this is the reason why they will appear as first.
So
after, there will be many other races coming, and after that, there is a second part of the plan that will involve the Galactic Confederation as a whole.
Okay. So in any of these, with your visit with the Pleiadians or anything else, have you seen any of the advanced technologies that we're hearing and that will soon be coming to Earth?
Oh yes. I'm pretty well aware of those technologies. I can expose a few of them. One of them is teleportation technology that makes travel very simple. You can come from point A to point B usually in about 20 or 30 seconds. It is, and the feeling when you go through this teleportation chamber is similar as skydiving. It's a very delightful sensation if you go through that. The second technology will be replicators or manifestation chambers, whatever you want to call them, is to those are able to manifest every physical object by command. So you can actually connect that thing to a computer. You can design a certain object on a computer with a graphics program, and then you can manifest the same object in any material you wish through that replicator.
Does that include food?
Yes. You can actually have, if you have a special scanning device, you can actually put the original object, like a very good cooked meal, into that scanning device. The device will scan that food and it will replicate it 10 times, 20 times, 1,000 times, whatever you wish.
I'm looking forward to that.
The basic components today, they will be available very soon.
Okay, now in my email chat with you last time, you said that there's a clear plan for ascension, but that the Pleiadians will not reveal this until the Cabal has gone from power. But do you have any idea that you can give us about what that ascension plan is?
Okay, I can explain basically what ascension is. Ascension is liberation of consciousness from all third-dimensional realities. It is liberation from the physical plane. It is a liberation from all the emotional states and mental states. It's actually quite similar to what the Eastern religions were terming as enlightenment.
Sorry, the which religions? Sorry, the which religions?
Eastern, like India, people in India were talking about enlightenment. And actually, ascension is complete and absolute enlightenment. This is something that's going to happen to a certain percentage of light workers or starseed that are right now on this planet. The humanity in the mass will not go through ascension process. It will go through deprogramming process, and human beings will be able to live their lives to continue evolving, but without the influence of the Cabal.
Well, there's so many different stories about that, though, because you're saying your story now, or how you believe it's going to be interpreted. Other people say that the majority of us will ascend in a human body, but that we will become crystalline in form. Other people say we're going to go to light chambers to be healed. And there's also views that Earth will split in two. One will remain in three-dimensional with many of the people who are dark, and the other may well progress up into the fifth, or will progress to the fifth dimension with everybody who's light. So it's very hard for all of us to know what is the real truth or what may happen, because none of us have been through it yet.
I know there are many stories. Some of them are correct, some of them are not. But as I have said, the Pleiadians have instructed me not to speak about this in detail before the Cabal is removed. Because the first focus is now to remove the Cabal. The ascension process cannot happen until the Cabal is removed. And when the Cabal is removed, I will give all the details, I will explain everything about the ascension process, what it includes, how it is done, and it will much clearer then. But we have to wait.
So, in reading about things, though, we're told there is a divine plan, and everybody talks about December 21 being a significant date. Do you believe that December 21 will be the real change of that, the moment when all of us actually ascend?
No, the ascension process will take much longer. What I believe is that most likely the Cabal completely will be removed by that date. And I mean the physical Cabal and non-physical Archons. So when the Cabal is removed, we are free, and from that moment on, we can start really healing the planet, ourselves, and to really surrender to the ascension process. And the process itself will take much longer.
Okay, so do you then not believe, though, that December 21 will then become the beginning of the Golden Age?
It will, because the Cabal is removed. So this is such a big step that you cannot imagine. This will change life so much. It is beyond any human expectations. It is a quantum leap that has never happened on this planet before.
And yet some of us may have been through it elsewhere beforehand.
Pardon?
Although some people say that some of us have been through ascension beforehand in other lives.
That happens to some people a long time on other planets, and they descended again. They lowered the vibrational frequency in order to be incarnated here. That's true.
So that's what happened with you as well?
Not in the same way. Not in the same way.
Okay. So over the last weekend, you've been talking about the balance of the light and the dark, and we're constantly being told that the balance has been redressed in favour of the light. And yet I wasn't quite sure what you were trying to say last weekend about that the light was winning or the dark was still in power or control. So where's that balance at as we speak now?
Actually, you can experience that balance in your life daily. And if you look around, you see where the balance is. The light is progressing, but at this point, the dark has not surrendered yet. They still control the mass media. They still control, to a great extent, the financial system. And when there will be a real victory of the light, all this will change drastically. It will be a breakthrough. Until that moment, we can say there is a certain dynamic equilibrium between the light and the dark that actually appears like nothing is changing, but in fact, in the background, many things are going on that are preparation ground for this big breakthrough that's about to happen.
Okay. Now, in your own personal life experiences, have you been raised, trained, or is this just your belief system following your meeting with the Pleiadians that you chose to follow this life path in search of, I suppose, keeping the light alive?
Actually, I have never lost my connection with the source, and I was always aware of this. And the situations they came into my life, it was a reflection of both light and dark. They did not influence my general decision. It was always there. But the light was helping me in this decision, and the dark wanted to stop me. And both forces are very strong.
So do you believe you've got light and dark? Sorry, do you believe there's light and dark in you now?
I have cleared most of the dark inside because I wanted to get rid of this. It was just simply my choice.
Because sometimes when I've read your blog a couple of times, I'm wondering whether you're possibly a little angry with certain cultures, beings, or institutions, and whether that's just your experience or whether you're coming from a very good place, I suppose is the best way of looking at it.
Well, sometimes I might get angry, and this is very good because anger can be transformed into something that changes the situation. So, as everybody, I have human emotions like everybody else.
Okay, so you have good and bad days.
Yes, of course.
So can you tell us a little bit, though, what may be a normal day or week in the life of Cobra?
I wouldn't like to speak about this yet.
Okay. So, but in terms of you're contacting people to get intel, then you're posting on your site, you're learning what's going on in the world, then posting on your site?
There's not much I can say about my contacts. I have contacts one way or the other. I receive intel in various ways, and there's not much about what I can say about it right now, so it's still quite classified.
Okay, now you just admitted that sometimes you have angry or dark days, but you've kind of become maybe the biggest promoter in an odd way of mass meditations over the last couple of months. How do you balance all of that, and is meditation a very big part of your life?
It is, in a way it is, because I use this practice, maybe not in the same way as most people do, but yes, I have my way of connecting with the source, connecting with the light, and I use it every day.
Now, when you talk about the source, what do you mean by the source?
Some people call it God, some people call it the light. There are various names, but I would say source is just a good name, a good explanation of connecting with something that is beyond, that is greater, and that encompasses everything. So
if I was to ask you now, are you a happy man, would you say, or woman? Would you say you're a happy man or woman?
I would say sometimes yes. I would say I'm much happier than I was. Especially in the period when the dark was attacking me, I was not a happy man or woman.
Okay, so what makes you happy today?
Oh, there are various things. I would just expose few of them. Giving this information to the general public is something that makes me very fulfilled. And there are some aspects of my private life that are very good, and I would not speak about them right now, but this fulfills me greatly.
And what else do you do to relax?
I take walks in the nature. I listen to the music. Sometimes I surf the internet. Many things.
All right. Now, speaking of music, I did ask if you would like to choose a song to end our interview today. And the song you chose is called Tonight in Babylon. It's by Love Rush UK featuring Canadian singer Bryan Adams. Can you tell me a little bit about why you chose this particular song, Cobra, and what it signifies or means to you?
Okay, when I first heard that song, it was just one confirmation, one sign of this change that is coming. And I felt the energy of that song, and it's like the energy of the breakthrough we are all waiting for. So when you listen to the song, you will feel that energy for sure.
All right. Well, look, you've been listening to Cobra here on the Light Agenda. If you're interested, of course, you can read Cobra's portal at 2012portal.blogspot.com. Thank you so much, Cobra. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much.
And here is Love Rush UK featuring Bryan Adams with Tonight in Babylon.
We'll be celebrating, dancing until dawn. Come on, dry your tears now. Put your dark glasses on. Tonight in Babylon. Gonna be
So there you go. I hope you've learned a bit more about Cobra and the beliefs and experiences that motivate the enigmatic owner of the Portal 2012 blog. I would also like to thank a few people for helping me rush this show to air this week. Most importantly, Graham Duyer, without whose deft editing and technical assistance this show would not have gone to air at all. Jeffrey West for pointers and moral support, Linda Dillon for her kind and loving emails, and Steve Becko and my partner Anthony Morrison for their own unique and gentle ways of pushing me to make this show a reality. And of course to Cobra and to you for joining me. Well, I hope you'll join me again next week for another edition of The Light Agenda. My guest will be channeler of Matthew Ward and her Tom, the author and writer, gorgeous Susie Ward. Until then, this is Stephen Cook, and remember, with all you do this week and every week, may you only serve the Light Agenda.
Thank You White Knights is supported by ExclusiveWellnessClub.com, home of wellness products for the health conscious such as MMS1 and 2, Lugol's iodine, DMSO, colloidal silver and MSM at ExclusiveWellnessClub.com, shipping outside the United States available. Link below. This is Thank You White Knights, and I hope you enjoyed this video. For updates and to go to the source of this article, please find the link below the YouTube screen while watching in YouTube. For the latest news and updates, please visit ThankYouWhiteKnights.com.